Do I have a treat for you? Today I am going to tell you everything you need to know about the Unmade Warband. Welcome in my tube friends! I am Peter Tubor and this is Age of Miniatures. Today I am going to talk about one of my favorite warbands in Warcry, the Unmade. Who are the Unmade Warband really? These guys are slightly deranged. Imagine the most weird, crazy Norwegian metal you can think of. And on top of that, add cannibalism and sadomasochistic tendencies. And then you have the Unmade Warband. That's how crazy these ladies and gents are. The background and the lore of the Unmade Warband is as follows. For the Unmade, pain is equal to bliss. Back in the days, the Unmade was originally known as the Philosopher Kings. And I can completely relate to this since I have a major in philosophy. Things took a turn for the worse when an undead horde attacked their city. To repel the undead, the Philosopher Kings had to turn to chaos. And this is why they are so crazy today. They worship some kind of god they call the Flayed King. It could be anyone really of the chaos god. So for the Unmade, pain is the ultimate goal in the world. Pain is easy to come by, but crazy, insane pain, as the Unmade wants, it can be slightly tricky. Because if you take things too far, you might end up dead. And that's not really what they want. What they try to do is strike a balance between having a lot of pain and still surviving, which seems insane. So the hierarchy of the Unmade is made in a way where the more limbs you are missing and the more pain you are constantly in, the more well off you are and the higher in the hierarchy you are. So if you take the leader, she doesn't really got any limbs left. On top of cutting off their limbs, they also eat each other and themselves. They also like to tear the flesh off of their body and make bags and belts and whatever they can with their body parts, which seems ludicrously insane. I just think it's amazing that Age of Sigmar can't incorporate such a crazy grimdark warband and story. If you asked me 4 years ago what Age of Sigmar was, it was more high fantasy and much less grimdark. But Warcry has definitely taken this lore to the next level. So let's talk about the fighters and the abilities each of them can use. And of course we're going to start with the leader of the warband, the most deranged of them all, and the one with the least limbs attached to her body, the blissful one. So the blissful one has quite a lot of movement, which is weird because she has no legs. 8 of movement is terrific for getting around the battlefield. And when you attach high damage on high movement, you get an extraordinary fighter in Warcry. She only has 20 wounds and 4 toughness, making her pretty easy to take down in a battle. So you need to get in, kill the enemy, chop the limbs and get out. She has 5 attacks with 4 strength, only a 2 damage, but her critical is insane with 6. She is pretty devastating, jumping around on her weird metal legs. She can use 3 of the abilities everybody in the warband can use, and then she has her own ability. She got the Nightmarish Visage. It's a double and everyone in the warband can use it. You roll a dice. If you roll a 3 or more on that die, that enemy fighter cannot move and he cannot disengage for the rest of the battle round, which is pretty good because movement shenanigans and forcing movement and denying movement is really key in Warcry. The next one is called Barbed Strike. It's also a double and it's not really that amazing. You can use it at the start of your turn, and for the rest of the turn, if you hit and damage an enemy, that enemy will lose 1 toughness for the rest of the battle round. It is circumstantial at best, because toughness is not an amazing stat to have. Warcry is a lot about a lot of attacks and a lot of crits, so toughness is not that important. The quad for this warband is pretty good on the blissful one, but less good on the rest of the warband. Normally you get a bonus move and a bonus attack out of a quad if it is an offensive quad. But in this case you don't. You get to make a bonus attack and then you get to add 1 attack and 1 strength to that attack action if the fighter making it has taken any damage. So you need to get some damage in on your own guys first before you can really use it. So it's slightly circumstantial. Also, this bonus strength and attack only counts for the bonus attack you get out of the quad, so not for the rest of your actions, making it slightly less useful than you want to. Her own ability, Vassal of Torment, is pretty good. It's a triple. What you get is a bonus attack and a bonus move with the blissful one. You can only use it if she takes down a fighter, making it slightly hard to pull off, but it makes her less vulnerable because you can move in, kill something, get a bonus move and a bonus attack. Sadly, you need to make the bonus move before the bonus attack. So you cannot jump in, hit something again and then move away, which would have been quite epic. The blissful one is a crazy good leader and what this warband is centered around. But if she goes down, it can be hard to compete. So make sure that you keep her safe, but also make sure that you maximize her damage potential. The blissful one is 220 points. That seems fair enough for what she can do. The joyous one is the next elite guy you have, and he or she is pretty similar to the blissful one. Slightly less damage and slightly less movement. It's move 5, so less than the blissful one, and only 15 wounds and 4 toughness. The attack is not as stellar as the blissful one, coming in at 4 attacks, 4 strength, 2 damage and 4 on a crit. The joyous one has a unique ability. It is called Fling Frenzy and it's on a triple. It's a damaging ability and I have never really found them that useful in Warcry. Most of the time it's random if it deals good damage or really crappy damage. So I rarely use these when I play, which is slightly sad. The Flame Frenzy is a bit better than the normal damage one because it's AoE. You roll a dice for all of the enemy fighters within 3 inches of him. If you roll 3 or 4, you deal 1 damage, which is pathetic. On a 5 to 6, you deal damage equal to the ability. So if you have a high triple and the enemy has clustered up, it can be good in that circumstance, but you need to roll higher. The joyous one comes in at 145 points, making him quite expensive for what he does, but he is also pretty good and essential for your warband. The next special guy is the Awakened one with a flail. All of the Awakened ones are 4 movement, 10 wounds and 3 toughness, making them quite fragile. What is cool about him is that he has a melee attack with a 3 range. His flail is 3 range, 3 attacks, 3 strengths, but 1 damage on 2 on a crit, so it doesn't deal that much damage. The flail guy has his own special ability, which is quite cool. His ability is called Chain Garrote. It is very similar to the Flayed Frenzy, but better. Instead of only a range of 3, it's a range of 5, so you pick all of the enemy fighters within 5 and you roll a die for each of them. 3 or 4, it's 1 damage, but on a 5 or 6, it is damage equal to the ability. And it's only a double, so it's quite a lot better. So really awesome if your enemy is stupid enough to clump up. The rest of the guys are not that special. You got the Awakened ones with polearms, 4 move, 10 wounds and 3 toughness. They do have a 2-inch range on their attack, making them okay, but they only got 2 attack. It's strength 3, 1 damage, but 4 on a crit. 4 on a crit is pretty good, but they don't got enough attacks. And you don't really got any special amazing ways to buff how many attacks they have. But the Awakened ones are quite cheap on 60 points, so they do have that going for them. The Ascended ones are your true but more elite guys, but they are quite expensive. They come in at 125 points. Not really a bargain. They are a bit more durable with 4 toughness, but they only have 10 wounds. And their movement is lackluster with 4. They have 4 attacks with 4 strength, 2 damage and 4 on a crit. So they are a bit more buff in melee, but for the points I don't know if they are really worth it. That is it for the fighter and their abilities. What are the pros and cons of the Unmade Warband? Well, one of the pros is that they are insanely cool and flavorful. If you like that sort of grimdark style, these definitely hold something cool for you. Painting them up is quite amazing and you can do some crazy stuff with the flayed skin and the blood and the gore and the missing limbs. I can also see a world where you can create some insane conversions. So one of the good things about the Warband is that they are quite versatile. You got some good abilities that everyone can use. They have a very strong and fast leader. She is definitely what makes this warband ticks. Some of the weaknesses are that you are fragile. So if your main leader goes down, it can be hard to have enough damage output to make this warband work. Also, they lack something exceptional. They have good fighters, maybe on the expensive side, but they don't got amazing damage or amazing toughness or amazing stuff really, so it's slightly average. So for strategies, the main thing you need to worry about is where your blissful one is going and whether or not she can take down fighters without getting whacked in return. To do that, you need to use your Nightmare's Visage for the greatest benefit. So that means trapping enemies and making sure she can come in, kill something and get out again. Hard parts about playing the Warband is that your enemy can quite easily counter your plan. So your plan is to get in, take the objectives, staying out of range, killing off fighters here and there. But if they sort of force the issue on you and kill your leader, it's hard to get back from that. The Unmade is also a warband where it can be hard to compete on every scenario. If you're playing some sort of, you need to capture something from the enemy and he's very doable, things can get really rough. Also, your movement is okay, but you are not the fastest warband. So things where it is important to move fast can be a bit of an issue. So let's move into buying the warband. The Unmade is specifically made for Warcry, so it has their own box. And in that box you get 9 fighters. You get 1 blissful one, 1 joyous one, 3 ascended ones, and 4 awakened ones. You only have one option, and that is to make one of the awakened ones with a flail or not. I suggest going with the flail because it makes sure that you can use that ability. The rest of the options that you have in the warband are purely cosmetic. Oh yeah, a word of warning when assembling the warband and when carrying the warband to battle. It is fiddly as Also, when you assemble them, they are pointy as. As always, if you want to play them in a campaign, I suggest getting the double box because you want more options. You can of course just put on some thralls or get an ally, but having some flexibility in how many of the good fighters you have in the warband is pretty sweet. So what do you think about the Unmade Warband? Do you think they are too deranged or are they perfectly balanced in their insanity? If you like this video, please subscribe. I have a lot more videos coming up about Warcry in the future. Hit the links, hit the links, hit the links.